Hello, and welcome to Beyond Bereavement, The Power of Planning. My name is Beatrice Tony Bailey, and I am your television host and the author of the book, Farewell, My Friend. Farewell, My Friend was written as a result of the many lessons I learned while taking care of my late husband. I found out during this very stressful time that it's not a matter of if a person's going to have to deal with these end-of-life issues, but when and who. Beyond Bereavement, The Power of Planning is a collaborative effort between the Interfaith Service Bureau and its television station, RCC TV, and Eastline Memorial Park. It's the desire of these organizations that Beyond Bereavement, The Power of Planning function as a platform for interactive discussions between the various faith communities. Won't you join us? Thanks for joining us. My name is Beatrice Bailey, and I continue to be your host on Beyond Bereavement, The Power of Planning. But I want to let you know, we've gone so far beyond bereavement. In the fall, the show is going to be changed. The new name of our show is going to be Buzzin' with B. All right? So, of course, we cover so many different aspects of life. But what we're going to talk about today is about being an overcomer. And I have people in the studio. It's really not a studio. I keep forgetting it's my living room. In my living room today, we're going to talk about different vehicles that they have used in order to be overcomers. I came across a phrase that I really like. It said, when God closes one door, he quite often will open up another door. However, sometimes it's hell in the hallways. And these people have been in the hallways, and there's been hell in the hallways, but they've been able, through their faith and other vehicles, to be able to overcome. So we can't always control what's going to happen in our lives. We can't control. I mean, I'm not God, you're not God. But we do have power and control over how we choose to respond to those vehicles. Some people always see life as the cup is half empty. I'm always saying, wow, I've got a half a cup of whatever left. And you're going to see a lot of the same kind of headsets here. So today I'd like for my guests to introduce themselves. I know you're Cindy. Tell us who you are, Cindy.
My name's Cindy Baldwin. Mom, I work. You want me to tell my story now, or
yeah,
just introduce myself?
Introduce yourself, and then we'll go back.
Okay.
Yeah. You work for the Senate.
I work for the Senate. I do legislation for veterans, which is pretty powerful right there in itself, and I also am a yoga instructor. And
you really like shoes. Did we get her shoes? She's got some
shoes.
Crazy shoes on today. Crazy shoes on today. There's nothing wrong with shoes.
Nothing wrong with shoes.
And Andrew, Drew Andrew.
Yeah, good enough, B. I'm Drew Wilson. I'm a husband and a father. For my profession, as you know, I'm an investment advisor, and when I'm not managing, my clients' portfolios, I enjoy teaching scuba diving. These are some of the things that I like to do for recreation.
And you're very active in your church.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And Miss Marie Woman, international traveler.
I'm Marie Napper. I'm a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 6, and also a great-grandmother of 2. And I'm retired, 10 years. Happy about that, and I do a lot of traveling. That's one of my specialties, I think, in retirement, is to travel.
Wonderful. Now, Cindy, tell us a little bit about your story. You've got quite a story to tell us.
Well, my husband committed suicide 3.5 years ago, and that statement, you don't know what it's like until you walk into that person's shoes. Mm-hmm. That was something I found out when my husband committed suicide. It was really hard to process. It's not a rational action that somebody should take. And so, first you go into shock when you lose someone, regardless of how you lose somebody. And I, definitely hung on to my friends and my coworkers, and went through quite a bit of time where I was just grieving. Mm-hmm. But then, I really made a choice to show my children and his children that this wasn't going to change me, this wasn't going to make things worse in my life. I was going to make it better in my life, and so I decided to reach out and help other children that are in the...
How many children did you have between you?
We had none together, but but between us we had 6.
Okay.
He had 3 boys and a daughter, and I had a boy and a girl. And the daughter that was his, she lived with us full time, and when he committed suicide, she was taken away from the family, and I still don't get to see her. Oh. So that was a challenge in itself. I actually went back to court to try to get to see her, because how devastating to lose your father and your whole family, you know. But the laws weren't there to protect me as a step-parent to see her. So that's what pushed me to go out and help other children. If I couldn't help my own stepchild, I wanted to help other children. And at the same time, I was also practicing yoga, which is, you know, more than just exercise. It helps you stay calm and balanced. It helps decrease your stress. So I continued with my yoga practice and decided I wanted to get certified to teach. I wanted to be able to share with others something that helped me get through the grieving process of the loss of my husband.
It's funny that you should mention yoga, because we did have an episode with Bikram yoga, which is the hot box sweaty yoga, and the Bikram instructor told us, he said, the reason that yoga is able to help you when you're dealing with a stressor is because with yoga you cannot be concerned about the pose you just did, whether you did it well or you didn't do it well. You can't be concerned about the pose you're going to do. You have to focus on the here and now, and that's the most effective way to deal with any kind of stressor that you're dealing with. You focus on right now, be able to put your hands around right now, and so that's really important.
Indeed.
Provided you can get in the poses, that is.
Well, indeed. I mean, if someone, you know, is obsessed about their finances, or they're obsessed about the loss of their, you know, spouse or whatever, and they come into my class, and I'm telling you need to get into warrior pose, and your shoulders need to be over your hips, and your leg needs to be back straight. You can't possibly be obsessing about that negativity. And then when you walk out, you feel a little cleansed. You've had that hour of calmness, and it helps you further, you know, recuperate from your grief.
Now, you mentioned that you like to, you try to help children. Now, in what capacity do you do that?
It's called a CASA. It's a court-appointed special advocate. It's a volunteer position. The courts will assign you a case, and most of the time the parents are either meth addicts or they're incarcerated. You become involved in that child's life. You're their voice in court. But you go a step further. You get involved in the child's life. You talk to their teachers. You talk to their therapists. You talk to their doctors. Their foster parents, if they're living with foster parents, or they're in, you know, they might be incarcerated themselves. And you find out what their needs are, and then you go to court and say, this child needs A, B, and C, or this child, it would be good for this child to see their parent if the parent is getting their life together. It's just, it's an incredible thing to do. Incredible, incredible work. Yeah.
Wonderful. How long have you done that?
For 3 years.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
that's impressive. Very,
Love it.
very impressive. Now, Drew, wait to hear about this. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, he looks like a choir boy, and he probably is a choir boy in some regards. But he's had a really fascinating run so far. So tell us a little bit about.
It's been a good run.
It's been a good run. Yeah, and his attitude is just. It's interesting. How God, we don't serve a God of coincidences. He knows exactly what we need to do when. I was giving a presentation to an estate planner about, she and I were going to do a co-presentation. So while I was waiting, her office assistant came in. She says, come, you've got to meet this man. I said, who? She says, you've got to meet this man. You've got to talk to him. So I went in and just heard a little bit about his story. I went, good grief, man. I said, you've got to be on my show. And since then, when he and I hook up together, it's sparks. We have so much fun together. So tell us a little bit about
energy.
It is lots
it
of good energy,
It
you know,
is.
and it's just great.
Well, you know, B, as you may recall, I'm first generation American. My mom and dad were married from back in Ireland. And once they came over, they got married, and roughly 2 weeks later, came over, no job, couple of $100 and a couple of suitcases. And so they came across to California, and I grew up primarily in California. And typical, you know, your typical guy growing up, going to school, everything else. You know, the big thing in my life, my mother is a cancer survivor, so that kind of shaped how I became somewhat independent when I was younger, taking care of a lot of things that you had to just be more resourceful as a kid. Growing up, I was the youngest of 4 children.
You're the baby boy?
I am indeed. I am indeed. It's good. So, you know, it was a little later in life, actually, where I started getting my own challenges. And because of the spirit of my family, my friends, and then obviously my belief system is really what carried me through. You see, shortly shortly after I was married in '99, actually a couple of years after that, it was in 2002, right after Christmas, I had been diagnosed with cancer. And at the time, I'd finished up school. I'd gone back to school a little later in life, and I just finished up, and I thought, well, if this is going to happen in my life, now's the time, because I'm ready to fight it, and I don't have all these other things on my plate. And I remember the doctor telling me, I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson, we don't have a cure for it.
Oh, not only did you get a cancer, you got that cancer.
Oh, I'm the guy that got that one.
That cancer.
Exactly. And it was crazy. I just couldn't believe it. Here I was at the time. I was 32, 33 years old. And I'm grateful to have made it that age, because there's men and women much younger than me right now overseas who aren't even seeing those age.
Right.
But when it happens to you, it's real and it's different. So shortly after that, it was a very hard time dealing with this. What I wish I had done, I wish I had reached out to some of those support groups to give me better perspective on it. But shortly after that, my marriage had failed, and I couldn't hold on to my house on one income. And basically my whole world just crashed under me. Thankfully, I had my family and my friends nearby, and one of the many blessings was my folks gave me an opportunity. They said, son, we know you're having a rough go right now. Why don't you come home, get your bearings straight, and be on your way again.
That's good.
Yeah, and this is what I needed. I needed a place to go decompress. And so I thought about it. I thought about that for maybe 2 seconds, and I loaded up my car, and moved home. And something I'd been doing for a number of years was diving, and I thought, boy, I always want to be a dive instructor. So let's go do these things that now I have the opportunity to go do, and we're just going to kind of go through life this way. And so anyways, thankfully enough, I get into it. I'm diving a lot. I'm teaching people how to dive. And
This is what kind of diving? Not
scuba diving.
Scuba
yeah,
diving.
yeah, typical scuba diving. You see,
That's such like water in your face and under the water. That kind of
thing.
Mess up your hair.
We got to try it sometime.
Yeah, right.
And
I'll get back to you on that.
This was that'll be another episode.
Right.
This was my way. This was my coping mechanism. I was able to have a lot of freedom and go do things. A lot of people will maybe start drinking, or we all have our things that we turn to. Well, diving was my thing. And it was something that I could do to share with others and do all these great things. So anyway, I'm going around the world, and luckily I had a job. I was working for a major mutual fund company in the Sacramento region at the time. I'd been there for a number of years, so I had lots of vacation time and some freedom there where I could go do these things. Again, I was very fortunate. Well, be after a number of years of that, I was on a trip in the South Philippines, and I took some people down there and was teaching them how to dive. And at the end of the trip, I was laying in a hammock looking up, and I asked God, I go, is this what you have for me, or is there more to life than this?
And you're in paradise. I mean, you're in the Philippines. I mean, you have palm trees and coconuts.
Yeah.
Sounds like paradise to me.
How good is that? And I'm wanting more. It's almost selfish, but it's what it is, and what I have learned is you can have stuff, you can have things, but that's not fulfilling. For me, what my fulfillment is helping others. So within about 10 minutes, I had this like epiphany. And I go running back to my room, and I'm up all night thinking about this. And really the thought was, I need to go back to the U.S., which was going to happen the next day when I fly home. I was going to leave what I'm doing and become an investment advisor, and I'm going to help other people who get the very hard news that I did, that terminal illness, or I'm not going to go the terminal route, but I'm going to say the incurable type of cancer that you have, help them get their affairs in order, including working with attorneys and accountants, and just helping that transition. And my dream or my goal was, when it's all said and done, that the spouse keeps the house for that stability. If there's children, that we provide money for education. And if there were daughters, hopefully we could get a few extra coins in there for a wedding one day. And this is my dream. This is what I was seeing. So sure enough, within about 90 days, I was out of my old job into a new job and lining these things up. And after I got into it, I realized, this isn't just for people who have illnesses. These are the types of help that everyone needs. And so that's where I am now. And now I'm an independent advisor, very passionate about what I do, and just love helping people. And it's really my calling.
Well, now, don't you? When you came to my office, to the studio, you had a little person with you. Now, where did he come from in the story?
Yeah, we've got a few more moving parts. A few more moving parts here. Well, I'll tell you.
And the miracle of his birth.
Let's talk about that for just a second. You know, oftentimes we make mistakes, and I believe God allows us to make mistakes, but He'll typically let us go so far until He corrects our mistakes. And that, I think, is now how I have, with the correction of some of the mistakes I've made in the past, I was able to go on and now meet my now wife and have my now son in my relationship and in my life. And you know, V, there was a long time there where I thought, no, I'm never going to have children. It wasn't really for me. And I can't say what an amazing blessing he has been to my life.
It's
and
cute as a bug.
Thank you so much. How much that has allowed me to be even much more passionate towards people and family. It just has really just been amazing for me. You know, one thing I'm very, very thankful for, we talk about this cancer. Well, when I was
thankful for your cancer?
Well, I am thankful to a degree, and it sounds kind of funny. People say, how can you absolutely be thankful for something like that? It drew a line in the sand, and it gave me a picture that, hey, life is a gift. Enjoy what you have while you have it, because you never know when it will disappear or be taken away from you. And it's also taught me that we're here and we are all here to help each other. You know, I bring my skill set to help people, other people. I mean, just the person who bakes bread so I can make a sandwich for my son. The simple things. We can't survive in this world alone. We all have to work together in helping each other. With my cancer, when I was first diagnosed, now I was very, very fortunate. I got to go 6 years without any treatment at all. A lot of people say, what, you have cancer? Quick, do something. Well, with the type that I have, it's very slow growth, and we took a very much what's called a watchful waiting approach. And then last year at the crash of the market, this was kind of crazy. The market was crashing.
The market was crazy last year.
Yes, it was. My son was 4 months old. The market was crashing. And unbeknownst to me, it was time that we had to start taking treatment because I was getting very sick at the time. Now, and this has been 6 years since my diagnosis. And so now they've actually come out with some things. We don't cure it. And I kind of compare it to people who are diabetic. Although we don't have a cure for diabetes, we have very scientific ways of managing it. Same thing with the cancer that I have. We don't have a cure for it. I think in my lifetime they'll find one, but we have ways of managing it that it's more like just a chronic illness. But I've used a lot of my experiences and skills to help people now structure what they're going to be doing going forward. And I don't think I'd be as compassionate if it wasn't for some of the turbulence that I've had in my life.
Well, it's interesting because so much of this is back to your headset. And when we were meeting earlier, we talked about, you gave me a phrase with regard to how people approach their finances and how important that their headset is. You want to tell us what that is?
Yeah, absolutely.
I like
this is something, there's this workshop I've told you about that I'll be hosting up at my church here. And it's a 13-week workshop, and we teach the basics from, you know, balancing a checkbook all the way through investing and insurance and everything. It's awesome. But one of the things that's quoted from there, and it says, you know, poor is a mindset, broke is a place you're just traveling through. And it's true. We all have challenges in life, but it's your head, it's your attitude. And one thing I love about your attitude is it's yours 100%. You own that, and you control it. It's up to you if you're given a real bad situation and you want to say, you know what, I can use this, this, and this, and I can get myself to a better place. That is on you, and that is what you control, and that's what gets us through the hard times. You know, I have, we all do. If you're breathing, you've experienced some type of hard time. You know, some people have more difficult times, but it's all very relative. And you know, right now in my prayers is a very good friend of mine, Kirk, who's up in Oregon, and I'm watching him as he's going through that hallway of fire that you just described.
It's called hell.
But he's going to get through it one step at a time, you know, and that's how we get through life. It is one step at a time. We didn't get to the moon overnight. It took a series of steps in the right direction, and we made it. It's the same thing with anything that you wish to achieve in life. You know, if the sun has risen, you have an opportunity to impact people in a very positive way and do something about your life. That's what I love about this great country of ours.
Isn't that wonderful? I mean, Drew for president. You know, I'd vote for him.
I don't want that job. No way.
that glass is half empty.
Oh, boy.
Marie, tell us about your story.
Well, like everyone knows that each one of us is, as we live longer and just live, we're going to have some misfortunes. And my example of going through it and coming out okay, in 1995, I had 3 people in my family that I was a caretaker with, not full-time with 2 of them, but full-time with my husband. So my sister-in-law got diagnosed in June. She passed away in October. My husband got diagnosed in November. He left here in January. My mother got diagnosed the same year in December. She left in July. And so I went through grieving like anybody else, and it's not a nice place to be, as everybody knows. But I think when you come into life where you have, you're at a crossroad in your life, you have a decision to make. You either make the decision, that situation be a motivating thing in your life, or you can get stuck. So, like most people, being married for many years, I just was poor me, you know, and I
But
was.
plus you had, because I know your story, you had a unique situation with the men in your life. A lot of women, a lot of the hang-ups that they have today is based upon fractured relationships that they had with their father, or ineffectual relationships they had with their husband. If I understand correctly, weren't you like carried around on a satin pillow as a child, and then carried around on another satin pillow by your husband? So you, I mean,
I
you
was
don't,
treasured.
yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you were treasured.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
what a
was
what a
treasured.
wonderful concept. As a little girl, you were treasured. So you expected when you got married, well, this guy's going to treasure me because I am treasured,
I
and
was
that's
well
a
kept.
blessing. You're well kept.
Yes, I was, but and it was a hard thing because my husband was my dear friend and my partner in life, and we had 4, which we have still, 4 wonderful young people. But when I went into the part where I was feeling like, oh, poor me, I got depressed, not long. I didn't stay in the basement long enough to be hanging curtains. Some people move in furniture. I chose not to. I just went and peeped for a while.
We're peeked in the basement.
And so what I decided to do, okay, Marie, you're saying to your kids and grandkids that they don't count. And so what I did, I said, okay, I have to embrace my family. And it's not really about you all the time, because a lot of times we can make it about us.
It's not just,
No, it
it's
wasn't
always about me.
No, it was not. And so the only way that you can pretty much get healed is to embrace the people that count in your life, your family and your friends. And one of the things I think most parents and most women, what they do, they choose not to go get help for themselves. And
Why is that?
I don't know, because we're supposed to be super women and we're supposed to be able to mend everybody, but we can't mend ourselves. So I reached out and went into counseling, grief counseling. Then I introduced it to my children, because we can walk around here mentally ill and not know it. And so I just chose, okay, I'm going to be doing something with it. And so as you go through life, you don't know who's watching you. And so after going through all of that and living my life at the fullness, I have people coming back and say, oh, Marie, you did a good job. And so that's a help. That's why I say it's not about me. Because you're here for a purpose. God give you the opportunity to be here. You do more than just self-absorb all of this, whatever we want to do, you know. So yes, I run the streets. I go traveling all over the world.
Now, and you're the picture of health, right? You have no health issues?
I have health issues. After my husband passed away, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I still have the diagnosis, but I just took that and said, okay, because people were telling me, Marie, why don't you get a chair? It'll lift you up off so you won't have to strain to get off. Or why don't you get one of those chairs to take you down to the grocery store? And I laid back. I could not turn myself into bed. I was at that point. I needed assistance. So my children and grandchildren was there. But I visualized myself walking out the door like everyone else. I didn't want to fall to all those traps. And I just, you know, the God that I serve, I believe that he provides for me, he protects me, and give me provision. And so those are the things that I count on. My faith, you know, and the encouragement of friends, you know, because I'm not a negative person. And so I just find a way to do it. And I always call, I don't know if anybody else call it. I call myself handy-capable.
Handy-capable?
Yes. I really believe I'm handy-capable. And I think the only people that's handicapped is the one that cannot make a decision for themselves. Even if I could not walk, I can point and say, put me in that corner. You know, even the person that can't see, they can say something. You know, there's a form of communication. So the only person that I really would consider handicapped is a person that can't make a decision for themselves.
See,
and we all can make
attitude,
yes.
attitude and choices. You had a choice. And
Absolutely.
You had every excuse in the world. I mean, you've got a genuine physical issue, and like I often say, we're all temporarily abled. You know, we're just temporarily able.
Yes.
So all of us going to get something someday.
Yes.
Just keep on living, as my mother would say. But you made a choice not to be a victim to your situation when you had bona fide reason to say, okay, that I'm a widow, I've got rheumatoid arthritis, I need to help the grandkids, I need to do, we've got all these excuses to justify us being stuck. And the other thing that you said, you have to have someone to talk to. And I was telling Marie, I said, well, you're a mother from birth to the grave. And what was your response?
Well, I still go talk to my mom. She's in her grave. And I thought, okay, you're going to be there until the kids will be bothering you until you die. But no, I tell her everything. When I get tired, I go and tell on all the family members. I go to my husband's grave sometimes, tell him, you know, why you left me here with these kids, you know, and I just get it out that way. And it's therapeutic. You know, as my belief is, you're absent from the body, present with the Lord, but you're still human. And so you're going to do some of those human things. And like he had alluded to, that it's a blessing that sometimes we do have periods that we have to stop and evaluate. He had cancer, I had rheumatoid arthritis. Now I'm looking like a picture of health, but people that really know me know that I came from a long ways in this struggle.
Because it used to take a village to get you up in the morning.
Yes, and all this apparatus, taking the class and whatever. But one lady said, oh, Marie, I'm so happy for you. I don't see the anguish in your face or anything like that. And she said, you're doing good. And after that day, I said, thank you, Lord, for showing your grace and mercy through my illness. You know, because we can be a blessing, but most people take the negative, poor me. And it's not poor you. You're still breathing.
Exactly.
You know,
and there's a lot of people
breathing.
that. What role has your faith played in
a tremendous role, a tremendous role. Because as I study God's word all the time, I just repeat it, and it's just it's way better than Good Housekeeping, guarantee. Because I just trust and believe, like I said initially, he provides, he protects, and he gives you provision to do these things.
Now, Drew, tell me about your faith, your walk. Because I mean, did you start out as an altar boy and you're running the church all the time?
You know,
or
really pretty much the opposite. Let's understand, I'd go to Sunday school as a child, all right? And that was when I was a kid and growing up maybe into my high school years. And then from college on there, I just kind of floundered. I believed, but I wasn't really into it. You know, what happened for me was after the diagnosis, the divorce, the house, and I was telling you I was teaching diving. One thing I didn't talk about is I've been a pilot for a number of years. And anyway, I was out with an instructor one afternoon, and we ended up having an engine failure and crashing an aircraft.
That'll get your attention.
Oh, it did. And you know, and so I was out in the field, a wet, muddy field one morning, upside down in this airplane, yes, with this instructor. And we got out and we ran Hollywood style. We thought it was going to blow up or something. It didn't. But you know, there were all these things that were happening to me, and it was like I was getting called into the church somehow. But I think the real thing that happened was, you know, when God got my wife Emily and I together.
How'd you meet her?
This is kind of a funny thing. While I was at work for that mutual fund company in Sacramento, I was doing all my traveling, and I thought for sure I was going to move away and meet some woman somewhere and get married and this, that, the other. Well, while I was home, this young lady and I started dating at work, or this young lady I met through work, and she and I started dating. And the funny thing is you know, her grandparents are alive. We just celebrated a 96th birthday,
blessing,
I believe it was.
blessing.
Yeah. And anyway, her great-grandfather was a pastor, Lutheran pastor. And I've always told her that, well, as long as your grandparents are alive, well, we're definitely going to go to their church on Sunday, so it gives us an opportunity to at least see the grandparents on a weekly basis. To me, it's important to get an opportunity to see family, because really without family and friends, there's not a lot to do down here. So we've been going up and seeing them, and they're very much into the church, and I found that this was a very good fit, this church. Up until that time, I'd gone to some small church, I went to some of the mega churches, and they weren't a good fit. But now I'm dating this woman, and her family's very much in the church, and this church happened to be a very good fit. So that's really what brought me into it. It was a series of, I'm just going to say, crashes, if you would, that finally got me laying.
Literally.
Oh, they were. Sometimes to look up, you have to be laying on your back, you know? And that's how it was for me. And so that was another blessing. And as I get into it, I find myself much more involved with it and doing things with the church. And it's, for me, it's really given me a lot of calm in my life. And you know, there are days when I've got that 1,200-pound gorilla on my back, and some days I just say, look, I can't deal with this. You take this, and that's how I get some of that, you know, that comfort.
You know, it's interesting. I read an article. A lot of people say, well, God's your co-pilot. If God is your co-pilot, you need to move over. You need to exchange seats. You don't need to be He needs to be driving, and you co-pilot with him. And that. So, but another thing that was interesting when we were talking. Has anyone ever heard of the Benz? I've heard the Benz. We're not talking about Mercedes-Benz, but the Benz. The only time I'd heard about it before was like on Sea Hunt with Lloyd Bridges. You know, you go down too far and you'd get the Benz. You had to come back up and get the pressurized chamber because there's bubbles in your blood or something like that. Andrew had a situation with the Benz.
You know, it wasn't my situation, actually.
It was your situation, wasn't you.
It wasn't me. It was, but close enough. It was my wife. It was in January, just last January, I did my very good friend Kevin and I, we are two of the gentlemen that lead these dive trips to various places, and we teach people to dive when we get there. My wife, Emily, she and I have been diving for years. Very, very accomplished diver. It was one of those things. We were in Mexico. It was the last dive of the day.
Before you fly out.
Yeah, before you fly out, and she ended up, you know, didn't really do anything wrong, but she ended up dehydrated, which is an easy thing to do when you're in those types of climates and you can't really drink the water that's readily available. You have to get that. So it's very easy to become dehydrated in these places. And because of that, while we were diving, she actually got the bend. So that unfortunately extended our vacation by another week in Mexico. And when I say unfortunately, it really was unfortunate because we're stuck in a room. We couldn't get out and walk around.
And she had to go in the chamber.
She was in the
literally
chamber.
in a chamber, like a tube thing.
Yeah. She was in a recompression chamber. She did that for 3 days for about 5 hours a shot. It was, you know, and it's just, of course, we carry insurance for these types of things, and these are just the little things that you just, you know, we could look at it and say, oh my gosh, you got, you know, what we call the bends. It's decompression sickness or decompression illness. We can look at how bad it was, and she and I are going, well, let's just be so thankful that we had the insurance for that. And, you know, because that could be a very expensive thing. And so, again, it's the attitude you want to choose. Sure, it's a bummer when it happens to you, but boy, it could have been a lot worse. So we're very thankful for that. And another thing was we have family in the area who's able to look after our son because he's too young to be taking to places like that. So, you know, all these things that we were very, very grateful and thankful for. If we didn't have those things in places, it would have been a really bad deal.
It gets back to something that the show also stresses, is being proactive. It's important for you to plan. I mean, it's nice if we could roll out our lives and know exactly what's around the corner, but all of us have got to have contingency planning. What if? Well, I know so-and-so, but what if? And that's how you should really be able to plan your life, to give yourself as many options as possible. Now, Cindy, what role has your faith played? Because we're going to roll a video throughout this show of you over at the Lord's Gym. What do you do at the Lord's? Is the Lord there?
Well, always.
Okay.
Well, I teach yoga at the Lord's Gym. I think my faith helped me, especially when my father passed away years ago. It was almost like I don't think I could have gotten through it without my faith. And then when my husband committed suicide, I worked with a lot of really strong Christians, and they were coming to me and they were sharing things with me from the Bible, supporting that, you know, my husband's going to be okay, even though, you know, maybe it's not the best way to choose to die. So very comforting. My faith helped me a lot through a lot of it, definitely.
It's important. Any other comment?
You know, I'm just, as I said earlier, I'm very thankful for a lot of the experiences that I've had because it has allowed me to understand people better. And that has helped me in my role in what I do of saying, hey, you know, we don't think things will happen to us. And I think that's the majority of people don't think things will happen.
Particularly with you being young, you're 12, 14 years old. I mean, compared to me, you are, you know, 12, 14 years old, yet and still you've had the life, you've lived the life of about 2 or 3 people.
You know, yeah, in all these great ways, yes. And I wouldn't trade anything that I've done. You know, some things have been setbacks if you want to look at it, but I look at them as learning experiences. And I've just met so many incredible people along the way that have made it so wonderful for me. You know, but these are the experiences that I can put together when I sit with, like I said, my clients. When I sit down with them, I bring a whole bunch of things to the table for them. And that's because of those experiences.
Well, right, because you're not bringing theory. Theoretically speaking, no.
There's a lot of stuff you can read, but actually having an example that you walk through yourself makes it different. Absolutely.
Marie, you want to add something?
Well, I just know that when you have the crossroads in your life, that you actually be introduced to that person that you didn't know that was within you. And it's a wonderful thing, even though you're dealing most of the time with horrible situations, but God has a purpose for all of that. And I think neither one of us would have grown as much if we hadn't had those experiences. You know, so.
Absolutely.
Right. What advice would you give our viewers? I mean, people that there's so many stressors out there right now. First thing that comes to mind is that crazy volcano over in Iceland. I mean, there's people who are stuck in there. As my trainer was saying, a lot of people, when they travel internationally, you have a budget for so much money. Okay, you have so much money, and some people fly with their credit cards maxed out. Who would expect it? You know, an ash crisis, and that you can't get back, and you've got to get a hotel room, you've got to get food, and all of those situations, and it is a tremendous amount of stress. You have the people who relied on their 401ks to shore them up when they retire. They're gone. You look at the people at Tycor and Enron who trusted those companies to take care of their investments, and here they're 60 plus and they have nothing. They've got to go back and work. And with the unemployment being the way that it is, I don't hear too many people complain about their jobs anymore like they used to. You just don't hear people, you know, I can't stand working for the state. You don't hear that too much because with the economy being the way that it is, people are really grateful that they have that. A lot of people, as you know, put their wealth in their homes. My house is worth $1 million. No, it's not. Your house is worth, you know, $475,000. However, you financed it at $800,000. So you're upside down. All of those stressors that are out there right now for everyone to deal with. And there's health crisis, and you know, we have our new health reform out there. We don't know where that's going to settle or anything of that sort. What kind of advice would you give to our viewers who are twisting and turning and not sure about all these unknowns?
Well, I could give you an example that I used in my life. A friend of mine, she was terminally ill, and she has 7 children. And so she had just purchased a home 2 years prior to her being diagnosed as terminal. So I told her, I said, Joyce, you go sell that house and find one of those 7 children to live with. She said, oh, Marie, I just got this house 2 years ago. And I said, you know what you're saying to God? That God, you gave me this one house, and you won't be able to give me another one. I said, you need to rest. You need to get healed. Now, mind you, she's terminal. Kaiser diagnosed her as terminal. So she listened to me. She sold her house, went and stayed with her daughter, Connie.
Did you also tell her to stay in her room and kind of be quiet?
Yes. So she stayed in a room with her. She stayed with her daughter, Connie, and her husband, Michael. So, you know, she was a busybody. She always loved to fix up stuff. And I told her, I said, Joyce, you have to just be still. And this is not your home. This is a privilege, you know. You don't have a right to be here, but it's a privilege. And I say, just concentrate on being well. So what, in the long run, I took up on myself because the girls asked me, Ms. Napper, since you retired, could you check on Mom every so often? So I said yes. I don't know how I got involved in that.
Because you're Marie, that's why.
I took it on. And so I had a husband and wife. The husband was preacher, and his wife was a choir director. So we made a commitment to do praise and worship with her every Thursday. We did that for 2 hours. So by and by, Joyce wind up coming out of hospice. And so after she started feeling well enough to go on, she had taken a class on how to buy a house or buy anything with a grant. So she took that class. And one thing about this woman, she have information, she'll apply it. So she left and went to her sister, well, her brother and sister-in-law in Atlanta, because she said God told her to go far off. So Atlanta was considered far off, apparently. So anyway, make a long story short, she built a house from the ground up, and God blessed her with another home. Because you have to know that it's more, God is more in control of your life than you give him credit for.
Well, a lot of people want to serve God in an advisory capacity.
Yes.
I'll tell you what I need you to do.
Yes.
Okay?
So I encouraged her to do that, and she thanked me, you know, because that's your belief system. You either believe him or you don't. You know, you believe him for everything, because my dad really gave me a blues when I left and went to Europe for a month, and I was in a wheelchair going into Castle Versailles in a wheelchair, whatever. He said, oh, you're too ill to go there. I said, Dad, if you trust God for one thing, you trust him for all. And I had a wonderful time in Europe for a month. So
that's wonderful. Tell us what role you think faith would play in all this.
And faith would play in all this. Well, you know, there's a very popular speaker, Zig Ziglar, who says if you help enough people get what they want, they in turn will help you achieve what you want. And I think that kind of falls in what the Lord wants us to do, is in helping each other. It's kind of what I was saying earlier about how I bring this to the world, and you bring what you bring, and we all add to it, you know, the sum of the parts together. You know, and this is me, you know how I am always so optimistic about things, and this is terrible. I know there's a lot of people right now who don't have jobs, who are wondering how they're going to pay for their house and this, that, and the other. And there's a lot of stress and pressure that goes into, we may lose everything. But I'm going to show you the other side of that coin is, now's an opportunity for you to find something that you're truly passionate about doing, and you can go out there and do it. And
you'll never work another day in your life.
Take risks. Oh, I don't get up and go to work. I get to go to work, and or I get up and go to work, but I'm on the phone doing what I love, I'm passionate about, I'm talking to people that I enjoy, you know, talking to and working with, and it's just amazing. You know, and you're absolutely right. If you love what you do, and if you're passionate, no matter what it is that you do, if you're passionate about it, you'll be successful. That's what you just need to do, is go find what your passion is.
You know, and a lot of people, they want to figure, I wonder what I can do so I can make $1 million a year.
And that's the wrong,
that's the wrong idea. You can't, it doesn't work that way.
You cannot do it that way.
You run after whatever your goal is. I mean, don't be crazy about it, but you run just full bore, and the money will come. If there's money for you, it'll come. But I know this one person says, you know what, I'm laying here trying to figure out, you know, how I can make $1 or $2 million. Well, first of all, you're not going to do it laying in the bed. You're not going to do it laying. That's your first mistake, you know, and that. But it's just amazing.
Right.
It's just amazing.
And if you're passionate, whatever it is, just do what you are passionate about. You will be rewarded. It may not necessarily be the financial reward or gain, but trust me, there's plenty of other rewards out there in life.
Well, I also believe a lot of people's happiness is impacted by comparing my life to your life. I mean, she's beautiful, she's cute, she's got phenomenal legs, she can get into the sleeping dragon, hidden tiger pose and not bust her kneecaps out or whatever. Marie has a wonderful relationship with her kids or whatever. But if I'm constantly comparing my life to someone else,
right,
and that, I mean, you can always find, if I go to the gym, I always find people who are in far better shape than I am. Then you got some other people who roll into the gym, you know, one way or the other. You got to just be in your own space and not worry about everyone else. Now, how did I ask you the question? I may have Alzheimer's here.
Well, sort of. I already kind of answered about my faith, but if I had a message for anybody.
Yes, thank you very much.
My message would be kind of like you said, you know, yoga's been my passion. And you talk about the rewards, not just being rewarded financially. You know, I go into my class and I hear people say, wow, I'm so glad I'm here today. I really need it. You know, it's really stressful in work today. Or I have one student whose husband passed away 2 months ago. And she feels better coming into my class every day. And I hear all that feedback from everybody. That's the best reward I can get. I mean,
you can't pay for that.
That's just huge. And so that's been a payoff that I've gotten, and a lesson I've learned by giving back to others. I get back 10 times more so. But my thing that I like to always share with everybody is, we get to do this one time. And how are we going to choose to do it this one time?
This is not a dress rehearsal.
It's not a dress rehearsal, you know, and I just see so many people with, you know, addiction issues or whatever, or they're just real negative people. It's like, really? We get to do this one time. How do you want to spend this day? How do you want to spend this life? You know, try to spend it following your passion, giving to others, looking at your glass half full, not empty.
It's all about choice. We have a choice. I mean, we have a choice. You either can let the different storms that blow your way just blow you off your mark, or you could sit back and say, okay, Lord, help me to be still. And stillness is an issue with me. Help me be still long enough to figure out, what am I supposed to do with this? How can I use this to further exalt you, and get over yourself, which is, you know, harder for some people than other people. Other comments? Come on.
Well, I just naturally think that, you know, as growing up as a kid, my grandmother would always say, Marie, look at a situation. If it's 90% not of your liking, dwell on the 10% and build from there. And I think those life lessons have encouraged me a lot of times. And like someone had alluded to, that you can't compare yourself to other people. And then you just, you know, you go out intentionally to do good that day, you know, rather than finding fault. You intentionally go out to do good. And then your day will be wonderful. But if you just go and let life just be what it is and have no plan of being intentionally wonderful to people that you pass, then you get what you get. You know?
Exactly. You will get what you get. Is there any one type of personality type that you try to avoid? Or you would give advice to our viewers to avoid when they're going through their valley, their hallway experience?
You know, you have to remain positive. There's a lot of people that want to pull you down. There's the news. There's everything we see all day long that's negative.
Now, you watch television all the time, right?
I don't watch television. You know that about me.
Right. But tell me, what's your television experience?
Well, it's actually mostly online experience that I receive from written news, but it's a lot of sensationalism. You know, it was said that the television was made for the commercials, and the shows are just there as filler, basically. And it's true. That's how they get compensated, is by selling ad space. But really, there's going to be a lot of naysayers. And if you go out and you try something and it doesn't work, but you believe in it, stick with it. You know, if you look at all the great men and women who've achieved anything, they failed a whole bunch of times on that walk.
Right.
They failed a ton of times. So you have to stick to it. You have to, again, be passionate. You know, one thing that's really important to me is you have to take risk. Now, not stupid risk, but calculable risk. But if you sit there and you just want to kind of keep working harder and towards a goal, that's fine. But without taking the risk, you may not be able to achieve that goal. It takes guts. And one thing that I think is probably the most important thing to me is always let your family and friends know exactly how much they mean to you, because at any moment life can turn on you. And you never want to carry that I never made good on that. I never opened up and said how I really felt. We never got that out in the open. You never want to be in those shoes. So that's one thing I'm really thankful for. Again, I say what I have as the type of the cancer that I have. It's been a mixed blessing to me, because it's really given me a grounded approach to life, and just be thankful for all the blessings you have.
You know, I remember reading something in the, I think, 60s or 70s. They had the expression, live today like today is the first day of the rest of your life. And I disagree. You need to live today like today were the last day of the rest of your life. Because the last day of the rest of my life, am I going to be mad at my husband? Am I going to get mad at the kids because they left the tube off the toothpaste? Am I going to get mad because my sister put ink on my blouse? If this is the last day of the rest of my life, And that I think with that kind of headset, you live your life differently. If today is the last day of the rest of my life, would I take time to pray? Kind of would. If you didn't do that, you kind of would. And you don't know if today is the last day of the rest of your life.
No,
The only kind of people that I am afraid of, and there's very few things that I am afraid of. I am afraid of negative people because they're infectious. Just like I find you very infectious, you're very positive. He and I get together, I mean, 5-minute conversation goes on for like an hour, you know, because we just, we're so like-minded in so many ways. But if I'm around a negative person, and after a bit, this and that, you know what, and I don't work out because my knee hurt, but now I think my osteoarthritis is bothering me, you know, and my lower back does hurt, and I think I got to, I mean, if you're around those kind of people, so if you, in my situation, I don't care if it's relatives. If you're negative, I'll do whatever my due diligence is to be around you, but then I'm going to have to extricate myself from that position because it is toxic and it is infectious. So if you're going through your own hallway experience and that, look at who you're surrounding yourself with at this particular point in time. And if it is someone that always singing sad songs, you know, Ain't It Dirty and things of that sort, avoid them. And the one thing that all of you have in common is some type of physical exercise. You do yoga, I know you do water aerobics. What's the role you think of physical exercise is on overcoming issues?
Oh, for me it was huge. I don't think I would have done as well as I did. But I also, I mean, just step back just a little bit about the negative people. That was a huge thing for me. If you looked at who were my friends and some of my family before my husband's death and after my husband's death, I have completely removed all those negative people out of my life because you find out what's really important, and that negativity is not something you want in your life anymore because it's
and you have a choice to do that.
Exactly.
You have a choice.
Exactly.
I mean, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. In that comment.
I think, you know, if you're around negative people, and if you find that you cannot affect their life, then that's when you start moving. Because sometimes you're placed in a place to be with a negative person to encourage.
It's true.
Because I feel like my biggest gift or purpose is encouragement.
You are.
And so when you have sense enough to know that, oh, this is not working, you kind of step back. I'm going to help you by not helping you.
Yeah, because some people are like taking sand on the beach. I'm going to take a cup of sand, put it on the beach, but you're not going to help them.
Yeah.
You do what you can do, and you kind of go,
Yeah.
this is not my fish to fry.
And, you know, and people just whine all the time. Takes too much energy. And like rheumatoid arthritis is a horrible disease. And when my doctor said that you have to move, I walk 3 days a week. Yes, I am a senior.
You're what?
A senior.
A senior.
A seasoned person. But I walk 3 days a week with the group, and then I do water aerobic, and now I'm learning how to do Tai Chi. And I have a girlfriend that lives in this facility where I do Tai Chi. I can't wake her up to get up in the morning. I come all the way from my home to her facility. But it's choices that you make intentionally.
Because the working out and the exercise, it releases endorphins, and those are your happy. Those are your happy enzymes. So those are really, really important. So, any other closing comments on being an overcomer? Because you are wonderful examples. All three of you are, first of all, very colorful, but also have led such interesting lives and have made such wonderful choices. And you've taken the different challenges that life has offered you, and use them only to better yourself and to be an example to other people.
And I think the key thing is life. Life is so precious and fragile. You just have to take it, you know, and just treasure it. Because I look forward to living and to experiencing my grandchildren and the great-grandkids and stuff like that. So if you start embracing life, life will just give you whatever. And if you're just negative, it'll give you the same thing. So I like the good stuff.
Absolutely. But remember, when you're living your life this week and in the future, Henry Ford said something that's always impacted me. He said there's two types of people in the world. There's those that think they can and those that think that they can't. That was super. Do you think I can get into some of those poses?
Of course.
Maybe with a little surgery, ball bearings installed or something of that sort. Now, this week when you go out, I want you, don't bother with telling God how big your storm is. Spend a little time telling your storm how big your God is. Okay? Thank you. Tune in next week. Blessings.
My job is to meet with the families and coordinate everything to do with the funeral service.
I will assist you in many areas of planning the actual tribute that you will be offering for your loved one.
East Lawn has a reputation of honoring loved ones with dignity, respect.
East Lawn has been serving families in the greater Sacramento area at the times of their greatest need for more than 100 years. Our counselors provide the support that people need. They know what to ask. They help you secure a lasting tribute for your loved one.
We're honored to have the privilege of helping your family during your time of need.